like you can't remember what you named it, so you can't do a search. And it's, you know, it's there, you know, you saved it, but who knows what file you saved it to, right? Not anything logical. Okay, so remember, there's two reasons why these pathways, you know, you can't find your way to this information in long-term memory. That can still happen. And one of them, you know, is just not storing it in a reasonable place where you can find it, that pathway later. And the second one is that fading over time, right? Because it's been a whole semester and you never rehearsed it, or you didn't do enough rehearsal to get it, that pathway restored in time for a final exam. Okay, as a quick aside, let me assure you that your final exam in this class is not cumulative. So it's just test 4 on the 4th quarter of the class. Okay, now if you do not happen to know this story, I know a few of you do, probably, who took AP Psychology. This is a really cool story, and it's really going to point out, you know, how things can happen to memory and the effects of that. So this is a picture of a famous psychology client by the name of Henry. Okay, Henry had parts of his medial temporal lobes removed, including the hippocampus. He had them removed because he was suffering life-threatening epileptic seizures. Okay, and so this is one of the ways that you can save your life, right? In other words, he was really worried, and so were his parents, that the next one would kill him. The last one came so close, okay? So he's got to do something, and this is desperate, but the only choice left, right? Could do this, or you could cut the corpus callosum, and this is what he chose. This is what they did. So his seizures were really reduced in frequency and severity by this surgery, okay? And but he lost his ability to move information from short to long-term memory. So you might remember that the hippocampus is involved in that process and super necessary, right? So now he can no longer move information from short-term to long-term. And I want you to think about what this would mean, okay? He kept all his former memories, everything that was stored in there today, still there, right? But nothing new can get in long-term, okay? So the psychologist working with Henry would need, even though they met with him weekly for the rest of his life, right? They had to reintroduce themselves to him every week, okay? Now, his motor skills were intact. He could ride a bike if he could before. He could play the piano like he did before. You could even teach him something new physically, like how to type his name on a keyboard if he didn't know how to do that. Okay, you can, like the one finger thing, you know, he could learn to do that, but he wouldn't remember how to do that later if he didn't know before. Okay, so you wouldn't remember that, you know, he can work on it at the time. That's short-term memory, and you can extend that 30 seconds for however long you work on it, right? But then once it's not there in your brain anymore, are you able to retrieve it? Well, for that to happen, it has to move to long-term storage, okay? So you can even teach them something physically new, right? You could teach them information you didn't know before. You could teach them how to do something. And you could successfully teach him, his short-term memory is fine. But, if you want him to retrieve that for you, you can't. Okay. Now, here's something else I want you to think about. At every appointment, he was shown the most recent picture of him at the time of the surgery, which is this one on the left-hand side. Okay. The one on the right was taken just before he died, but what they would show him is this one and then a current one taken that day. Okay. And he lived to be 43. I believe it was 43, but anyway, this is the last picture taken of him. And every single time, which one do you think he pointed at when they asked him, which is a picture of you? He points at the one on the left. That's all he can remember. Think about the shock it would be to look into the mirror, any mirror, even a reflection in a store window, right? And to see someone that you don't really recognize even, and from a very different age range. It's very fascinating. Okay, in your Texas week, you learned about 2 categories of long-term memories. 2 categories, declarative and non-declarative. You learned about these 2 types of declarative, see my cursor, and you learned about these 3 types of non-declarative, okay? And so I'm not going to go over all these, but I do want to remind you, because it can be a little more difficult to remember, that classical conditioning memories, memories that are formed through classical conditioning, are learned through association, right? Classical conditioning. And then the priming memories, what this refers to is something you're thinking about at the time can affect a memory that you pull out of your memory bank while it's there in your brain, right? It can actually affect a memory. All right, and that's called priming. You might remember. So you get 2 minutes for this, see how many you get right. And for each item, I want you to write either a capital D or a capital N. And then second, you're just going to write the small first letters unless the first letter of the one under that category that it represents. Unless it starts with a PR, and then you're going to have to write PRO or PRI, but still in lowercase letters. All right? You get 2 minutes and go. Okay, let's see how you did on this. The very first, again, I'm going to give you the answers, but very quickly, remember. So the first one is be sure to use your shorthand if you get one wrong to correct it. The first one is declarative and episodic. Okay. The second one is non-declarative, classical conditioning. The third one is declarative, semantic. The fourth one is non-declarative, priming. The second one, the fifth one is declarative, episodic. The sixth one is non-declarative, procedural, right? Memory for how to do something. And the next one, number 7, is non-declarative, procedural, okay? And the last one is also, number 8 is declarative semantic. And number 9, the last one, is also declarative semantic. All right. So remember, a good way to kind of trick to remember these categories is to know that declarative is stuff in your memory banks that are facts. Okay. So semantic might be who's the president right now. You probably remember that. And that is a semantic memory. It's a fact. And a fact that you learned at some point. Okay. And then episodic is like episodes of your life, right? So if you remember what happened on your 14th birthday, that's a great episodic memory. So remember, that's how you kind of tell declarative and non-declarative apart, is know that if it's not a fact, if it's something you do, it's procedural. If you learned it for classical conditioning, in other words, through association, right, then it's non-declarative classical conditioning. And there was a cool example of priming in here. Hey, it was number 4. It'll give you a great example of that if you look back at that one. All right. So